The dog growled at the child every night. When the father found out why, he was horrified. Frank and Ellen's small house lies peacefully in a quiet suburb where only the sound of rustling leaves and a gentle breeze blowing through the open doors can be heard. This is where they began to build a new life, after years of racing with work and worries. This house is not only a home, but also a symbol of the peaceful life they have dreamed of. The warm meals, the cheerful laughter of their son Daniel, and the loyal presence of Rex, the German Shepherd they adopted from the shelter 5 years ago, are all that make up the simple happiness of this family. Rex is a gentle, intelligent dog who loves Daniel very much. He is not only a loyal friend, but also an invisible protector, always following the boy like a shadow. Their lives, though simple, were still filled with joy. But then everything started to change. Every night, when the dim yellow lights illuminated the entire house, something strange began to appear. Rex, the dog whose every gesture they knew well, suddenly began to exhibit strange behaviors. It growled suspiciously into the darkness, barking loudly in the middle of the night, as if trying to warn of something that only it could see. The strange sounds in the night, Rex's inexplicable tension, and the quiet moments between the couple made them start to feel that something was not right. The shadows seemed not just a simple absence of light, they seemed to contain something incomprehensible, a mystery that is gradually enveloping the entire house. And when Rex stood still, his eyes fixed on the dark corners, as if watching something that no one else could see, this small family realized that they might be living in a house that not only contained happiness, but also hid unexplainable things. 2 weeks have passed since the strange occurrences began, and everything has only become more tense. Every night, as darkness gradually envelops the house, Rex is no longer the gentle dog he used to be. It no longer ran around happily or lay sleeping on the floor as usual, but stood silently beside Daniel's crib, its bright eyes fixed on a dark corner of the room. Rex's ears perked up, growling softly in intervals, as if an invisible danger was lurking in the darkness. Its gaze contained a tension that Frank and Ellen had never seen before. Sometimes Rex would stand there all night, eyes intently watching something that no one could see. Every morning, the family still sees Rex healthy, with no signs of illness, but its actions make Frank and Ellen uneasy. The feeling of unease from Rex spread to them, making the atmosphere in the house heavy and gloomy. Especially every night when the sound of the wind outside the window echoes, the feeling of being watched by something invisible becomes clearer than ever. Although they couldn't explain the reason, the anxiety in Frank and Ellen's hearts grew stronger. One evening, when the couple sat together in the living room, the silence in the air was almost heavy. Frank looked at Ellen, his voice dropping slightly, tinged with confusion. "What do you think about Rex?" "It is the gentlest dog we know. Why is it acting like this now? There must be something wrong, but he can't understand it." Ellen looked at her husband, her eyes also filled with worry. She sighed, then gently replied, "Maybe it's having some health issues. We should take it to the vet for a checkup, but if that's not the case, we can try another way. Sometimes actions like these are not just because of illness." Frank looked at his wife, hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe you're right. But anyway, we have to find out clearly. Something made it act like that. There must be a reason." Although they didn't want to worry too much, Rex's abnormal behavior had started to affect the family's sense of safety. What is really happening to the dog they have been so attached to for so long? And those strange things in the darkness, are they really just imagination, or is there something more terrifying waiting to erupt? The next morning, Frank and Ellen decided to take Rex to the veterinarian for an examination, hoping to find the cause of the dog's strange behavior. They drove to the nearby veterinary clinic, where Rex appeared calmer than usual, although its eyes continued to stare intently at the surroundings, as if still sensing something unusual. The veterinarian, a middle-aged woman with gentle hands, conducted a series of basic tests. Blood, hearing, vision, and even Rex's nerves were all stable, with no signs of illness or injury. After finishing the examination, the veterinarian looked at Frank and Ellen, her face still serious but also somewhat relieved. "We didn't find any health issues with Rex," the doctor explained. "Your dog is completely healthy. However, sometimes dogs can react to changes in the environment that we cannot perceive. Small sounds, changes in the air, or even vibrations that humans cannot perceive can make them more sensitive. They can hear or sense things that we will never know about." Frank and Ellen looked at each other, still feeling they couldn't be completely at ease. They recalled the nights Rex stood guard by Daniel's crib, his gaze seemingly focused on something invisible. The veterinarian's words, although reasonable, could not explain the strange feeling they had experienced in the past few days. Is Rex just reacting to factors they haven't noticed, or is there really something dark lurking in their small house? The veterinarian continued, gently patting Rex. "Just keep an eye on him for a few more days. If Rex's behavior doesn't change, or if there are any other unusual signs, you can come back. But I think this is just a temporary reaction." Although somewhat reassured, when Frank and Ellen left the clinic, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. The veterinarian's explanations were reasonable, but why couldn't they explain the vague sense of fear gradually forming in their hearts? They drove home in silence, their hearts still heavy with worry. 3 days after Frank called the expert, the man finally arrived at the house to begin the inspection. He is a renowned expert in detecting structural and environmental issues in homes, so Frank hopes that, at the very least, he will help uncover the true cause behind the strange phenomena in the house. The expert began the work with a meticulous gaze, going through every room in the house, inspecting every small corner. Although Frank had prepared himself to accept any conclusion, he couldn't hide the rising tension in his heart. Finally, as he approached the corner of the room where Rex usually stood guard every night, the expert stopped. He bent down, used his hand to check a few spots on the wall, then gently lifted the wallpaper. A clear, damp streak appeared, making Frank feel a chill run down his spine. "There are signs of water infiltration here," the expert said, his tone calm yet attentive. "It seems that water has penetrated from the outside and caused the wall to start deteriorating." Frank and Ellen looked at each other, surprised but also somewhat relieved. Although they couldn't fully understand, at least they had found something that could explain Rex's abnormalities. However, the expert did not stop there. He continued to investigate further, systematically checking the potentially related points. After a while, he approached the plumbing system, and after a short time, he raised an eyebrow slightly. "There is a small leak in the plumbing system below this room," the expert said, his tone more serious. "Water is flowing from here and seeping into the walls, damaging the load-bearing beam here. If not addressed promptly, this issue could become more serious." Frank felt a wave of anxiety wash over him, but also a sense of relief because they had finally found the cause, Taz. The expert continued to explain that due to water seeping in for a long time without being detected, the wall structure and load-bearing beams could weaken, affecting the stability of the house. This could be the reason why Rex feels uneasy, and also why it keeps looking into those dark corners. Something in the structure of the house is changing, and perhaps Rex noticed it before the humans did. "This is a big problem, but it's not insurmountable," the expert reassured. "I will provide a detailed repair plan. However, you need to act immediately, because if the water continues to seep in, everything will become dangerous." Frank nodded, feeling both relieved and still somewhat anxious. Although the structural issue has been identified, the strange feeling in the house still cannot be completely dispelled. Could it be that all those phenomena are simply the result of this deterioration, or is there something else simmering beneath the surface? When Frank and Ellen began to reflect on the strange events of the past few days, they realized something important that they had not noticed before. Rex was not simply reacting to shadows or vague sensations in the space. The dog had noticed the change in the structure of the house, something that humans could not perceive, but was clear to an animal with keen senses like Rex. Rex's growls, which were thought to be mere expressions of fear or an irrational reaction, now carry a completely different meaning. He wasn't growling out of fear or because of the images in the dark, but for a deeper reason. Rex sensed the weakening of the house's structures, factors that it could not explain rationally, but could perceive through its senses. He had sensed the latent danger, the water leak silently weakening the foundation of the house, which made Rex vigilant and always on alert. The barks, the guarding gestures of him are not meaningless madness, but the natural and instinctive reaction of a protector on a mission to warn the owner of an impending danger. Ellen looked at Frank, her eyes now filled with understanding. She quietly realized that Rex's actions were not just the manifestation of a scared or unusual dog, but in fact, he was doing what his instincts demanded, protecting the family, safeguarding the safety of those he loved most. Rex had noticed what they could not see, had discovered what a human, no matter how perceptive, would find difficult to comprehend. Frank nodded, realizing the depth in Rex's actions. He understood that what they thought was abnormal was actually a correct and necessary reaction. The dog is not just a pet in the house, but an important part of this family, with a very different role than they had previously thought. Rex's actions helped them recognize the potential danger, and perhaps those very actions saved them from a greater disaster if it hadn't been detected early. This made both Frank and Ellen feel both grateful and somewhat anxious. Although the water leak and structural damage have been discovered and will be repaired, what Rex has done also raises a bigger question. Are there things they still haven't noticed, things lurking in the shadows that they have yet to know? Ellen and Frank stood silently in the living room, their hearts overflowing with deep gratitude. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with admiration and relief. If it weren't for Rex's vigilance, they might not have noticed the serious damage silently occurring in their home. The small signs that Rex noticed, the warning growls every night, could have turned into deadly signs if not detected in time. Both spouses imagined a scenario they dared not think about. If the water leak continued for an extended period without anyone noticing, if the load-bearing beams in the walls continued to weaken without being repaired, the structure of the house could collapse at some point. That could cause a disaster not only for Rex, but also for their entire family. Yet Rex, with his keen instincts, noticed what they could not see. Silent warnings, his seemingly meaningless actions were actually the alarm that saved them. Looking back, Ellen felt a pang of sorrow when thinking about the nights she didn't understand why Rex acted that way. There were times when she felt uneasy as the dog stood still in a corner of the room, its eyes staring into the dark space that she couldn't explain. But now, everything Rex does has become clear. He is not mad or has any mental issues. It is just the strong protective instinct of a loyal animal, trying to warn about potential danger. Frank gently patted Rex's head, feeling the warmth and reassurance from the dog. He couldn't help but be grateful for the dedication and loyalty that Rex had shown to their family. The dog protected them in a way that no one could see, with silent but steadfast reactions. A silent, unassuming protection, but incredibly important. "We are really lucky," Frank said, his voice dropping but full of emotion. "If it weren't for Rex, everything could have been much worse." "Thank you, Rex." Ellen smiled, her eyes filled with love as she looked at the dog. Then she turned to her husband and nodded in agreement. "Not only are we lucky, but we also have a wonderful friend, a friend who kept us safe in moments when we couldn't protect ourselves." Even though everything gradually stabilized, both Frank and Ellen knew that they would never forget this lesson. Luck does not only come from obvious things, but sometimes it comes from silent actions, from vigilance that seems meaningless yet can save a family. And Rex, with all his love and loyalty, did it perfectly. With the help of the repair team, the work to fix the damages in the house was quickly initiated. The leaking pipes were replaced, the stains were carefully treated, and most importantly, The damaged load-bearing beam was replaced and reinforced. A significant part of the house's structure was reinforced, protecting the family from potential dangers they had never realized before. Everything seems to be restored as if the house is breathing a new breath. Throughout the repair process, Frank and Ellen closely monitored every step of the progress, feeling increasingly relieved as each part of the house was restored. They not only saw the cracks in the walls being filled, but also felt the safety gradually returning. The sounds of saws and hammers echoing in the space are a clear sign that everything is returning to its rightful course. And then finally, the house was completed. The strange sounds, the unusual noises that used to startle them every night are no longer there. The chilling feeling from the winds blowing through the cracks in the walls has also disappeared. The room, where Rex often stood guard, no longer brings a sense of unease. Everything seems to have returned to normal, but this sense of security is completely different from before. Ellen sat down by the window, looking out at the garden in front. She sighed with relief, smiling as the sunlight streamed into the house, bringing warmth and tranquility. It feels like the days of anxiety have passed and everything is now stable. Frank sat down beside her, gently patting her shoulder, as if wanting to share the joy that they had finally overcome this challenge. Rex, like a silent guardian, lay on the floor, his eyes still vigilant, but now he could relax more. The dog no longer has to guard the house all night like before, but it is always by our side like a loyal friend, always ready to protect the family when needed. Frank and Ellen's small family went through a difficult challenge, but now they can feel the safety and stability in the home they have called their nest. And all of that in large part thanks to Rex's vigilance and protective instincts. The message of the story is not only about the loyalty or unconditional love of four-legged friends, but also a deep awareness that they can be silent protectors, careful observers, and ready to warn us when danger arises. Their small, sometimes seemingly meaningless actions contain important messages that only they can convey. In a world full of noise and haste, dogs, with their remarkable sensing abilities and strong protective instincts, have proven that they can see and feel things that humans sometimes cannot recognize. The story of Rex is the clearest testament to the power of loyalty, vigilance, and the ability to transcend the boundaries between humans and animals. The change in Frank and Ellen lies not only in how they perceive Rex, but also in how they confront the relationship between humans and pets. Previously, Rex might have simply been a loyal dog in the family, a playmate for Daniel, but now Rex has become an indispensable and important part of their lives. Both Frank and Ellen now understand that the love they have for Rex is not just affection, but also deep appreciation and gratitude for the protection he has provided. Before the incident in the house, they might have considered Rex a companion, but after realizing his importance and strong protective instincts, they understood that the dog was not just a family member. Rex was truly a silent hero, always ready to protect them without needing thanks or recognition. They not only helped them recognize the danger, but also taught them about patience, loyalty, and how to view a relationship not just from affection, but also from mutual understanding and protection. Looking back on the journey, Frank and Ellen's family not only changed in their perception of Rex, but also in how they understand the value of all relationships in life. A profound change in the way we love and care for our four-legged friends, realizing that sometimes what we consider simple can be the most important actions in protecting our lives and happiness.